Welcome everyone to the dance floor where life lessons are learned through the art of dance. I'm your host, Anna Harsh, and I have two special guests with me today. Mr. and Mrs. Marotta, Connie and her husband, Tony, are here with me today. Welcome to the dance floor, everyone.
Ciao, Anna.
Ciao, Anna. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
This is the first time I've had two people on my podcast at the same time, so we're going to see how this works, right? Try not to fight.
So are we.
Well, I am so glad that you guys are here. Tell my listeners a little bit about yourselves. Like, where are you living right now, and what do you guys do for a living?
We live in Mayfield Heights, Ohio. It is a suburb of Cleveland. Currently, I'm working at the Cleveland Clinic. I'm a secretary there. And I don't know, I was born in Euclid, and my parents are from Italy.
Nice. And Tony?
Now my turn. Huh? All right. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, just like my wife, Connie. Yes, as she said, we live in the eastern Cleveland suburb of Mayfield Heights, about half hour from downtown proper. And my parents are from actually the same region that Connie's parents are from. That would be Molise, which I like to refer to as the West Virginia part of Italy. I know I'm not supposed to use that joke, but anyhow, my parents immigrated from Italy to the United States in the late 50s. My father-in-law, Dad came when?
Oh, in the 40s. He was 17 when he came from
late
Italy.
40s, and my mother-in-law came in the early 60s, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
So
and
we are true first-generation Italian-Americans.
Wow. So I know that we've talked about this before on your station, on Tony, on a little bit on your radio station. Tell my listeners a little bit about that station and the special things that you play on your radio station that you work for.
Oh, I'm very glad to. Thank you, Anna. I host a radio program on WRUW FM 91.1, and it's called Radio Italia of Cleveland. We broadcast from the campus of a university here in the Cleveland area. It's called Case Western Reserve University. And I've been doing so since about May of 2008. Previously, a few years before that, from 2005 till the end of 2007, I was actually at a different radio station, a commercial radio station. And the name of the program there was Italia, Ieri, Oggi e Domani. And when we kind of transitioned from the commercial radio station to the college radio stations, it allowed us an opportunity to change our strategy, shall we say. First of all, we didn't have to worry about selling ads for airtime because we were non-commercial, so we could focus solely on music, which is really what myself and my ex-co-host Nick Zappatelli, what we were planning on doing. And from the very beginning, we set a format that we wanted to follow, and we haven't really deviated from that by myself over the last 15 years now, by golly. And really what it amounts to is me keeping the conversation to a minimum, unless it's in the form of an interview, like we've had the opportunity to interview you live in the studio and other people. But otherwise, generally speaking, what we do is we play a more contemporary-based type of show. Yes, we still adhere to some of the wonderful folklore music that you can take and dance to. I know dancing is important to you, young lady. And but we also like to take and introduce some contemporary artists to our listeners that they may not have had a chance to listen to before. And I'm a very strong proponent, Anna, of dealing with independent artists, those that aren't signed to a big music label, let's say, that you're going to hear a lot anyways in Italy. And these artists are generally very receptive and very appreciative of the fact that there's some guy in Cleveland, Ohio. It's interesting. You have to explain to some of these people in Italy sometimes what country Ohio is in. So we tell them it's in the United States. Right. And they're very grateful for the time that we give them, for the exposure that we give them.
I kind of do the same thing with Allegro. I like looking for somebody that's not well known and that is an upcoming talent, coming up through the ranks and working their way up to, a bigger name stage or a bigger company to dance for. And one of my dancers that I had on tour with us last year, he got on as an extra in a Denzel Washington movie recently. So you never know what your break is, you know?
Exactly.
So I'm a strong believer in that too. I love that you have special guests on, and I know you've interviewed a lot of people, and I know Connie's been on your show as well, and talked to several guests and filled in for you and that sort of thing. How does that work? How do you get your guests, and do you have a special one that you
Anna,
love?
if I were to tell you that that I strategically plan things, I'd be lying to you. I've been very blessed throughout this entire radio adventure to just, you know what, I don't find the music finds me is kind of like the approach that I take. And so I'm researching every day. Every day I spend at least anywhere from half an hour to an hour just investigating any particular avenue of Italian music. And that usually leads me to these wonderful discoveries that I make of these artists that, again, are fly below the radar, so to speak. And when that happens, I reach out to them, and they're usually very incredulous. They don't take me quite seriously like the kids from a Ruspica. You know, Marco, the male part of this duo, was telling his partner at the time, they weren't married yet, that, no, this is one of our friends from Venice. Leave him alone, he'll go away. But I did tell him, well, if you click on this link tonight between such and such a time, that you'll hear your music. And they did, and they realized, wow, you're for real. What I also do too, Anna, which is quite interesting, and I think you know this, is that I write for our regional Italian-American newspaper called La Gazzetta Italiana. And I've been writing for them on an almost regular basis now since 2009. So it's been already over 11 years. And what I do there is I take and I compose a monthly music article on an Italian music artist. Yes, many of them might be some of the larger big artists that maybe you're familiar with, like Laura Pausini or Eros Ramazzotti. But you know what? I'll take the time to write about some of these. And the Italian word is sconosciuti, which means unknown artists. And again, they're the ones that are generally the most appreciative. And they say, Tony, this article is so wonderful that you wrote on us. Can we use it in our publicity, materials? I said, you're welcome to it.
Wow.
Here's the link to the PDF, to the newspaper itself, and make use of it in any way that you want. So I'm always trying to immerse myself, in the aspect of music in whatever capacity. And for a while too, Anna, I had a side business, part-time, almost a hobby, where I was selling Italian music on CDs. And I began that business in 2002, and I only shuttered it like just over maybe 2 years ago, because the curve, if you will, of music on CDs has sort of reached its end, as people now are getting music through electronic means and stuff. But that was another way that I was able to take. And I had over 40 retail locations, bakeries and delis, where I would have my music on consignment. And you know what? It allowed me to, again, share my music interests and tastes, with people.
We dancers call that the hustle.
Yeah.
You do what you got to do to hustle, and you get your things out there. I've had Allegro so long that we started out with cassette tapes, so I feel you. And then we moved into CD. We had a few years we had live musicians with us, but that's really challenging for a dance company, a small dance company like mine, to keep up with, to pay everybody enough what they deserve to perform. And then now we've moved into that digital phase where everything is sort of either on my phone or on a little tiny memory disk, and we just insert it into their computer, and that's how our show is run. That was challenging, I have to say, throughout the years to dance to cassette, because we never knew if it was going to be played slow or fast. So yeah, it's really great now because we can depend on the beat of the music where we couldn't depend on that in the early 90s. So that was challenging enough. But tell my listeners, how did you guys meet? Did you meet about music? How did the two of you meet?
It's rather interesting. Let's just say that mutual family and friends arranged a sort of meetup shall we
Okay.
say. What happened was Connie was the bridesmaid in her sister's wedding, and so she went to this one woman who is a seamstress. And I happened to have a pair of pants that I needed to have shortened. So I happened to be there that evening that she was having her dress, adjusted, and I struck up a conversation with her, and
you wouldn't leave me alone.
Yeah, right, exactly. I just kind of
so I caved.
So she caved in,
Love
right?
at first, love at first fitting.
I like that. That's good.
He had to work for it.
I found that there were a lot of commonalities there, which were very important to me. First of all, she could cook. 30 pounds later, I could testify to that fact. She spoke the language as well as I did, which is not particularly well, but good enough to at least get by. And she was working too. So at that point, I was ready to close, but I figured, I didn't want to scare her on our first meeting there. So I waited 3 months before I began discussions of marriage with her. And there's a real cute story. I took her to a sort of swanky restaurant here in the Cleveland downtown area, Swingles. And every course of the meal had alcohol. And it was also type of restaurant that had a strolling violinist. So, what did I have to lose? So
right, that's romantic right there.
And I didn't propose to her by asking her. I kind of in the course
kind of told me.
Yeah, in the course of speaking with her as I was planning the future, I said, "Now look, when we get married later."
I'm like, what?
Well, and she sobered up real quick. It was funny when I dropped her off. She told me this later that her mother asked her how the date went, and she said, "It went good, but I think he proposed." What do you mean you think he proposed? Well, he didn't actually say, "Will you marry me?" He just said, "When we get married." So my mother-in-law thought that might have been,
alcohol.
It might have been the wine. It might have been the pre-dinner aperitif. It might have been the post-dinner amaretto, whatever. What the flaming cherries jubilee. So she decided to call me out on it on next date, like the next Tuesday or so, and said to me, Tony, the other night at Swingles, did you remember that? Well, oh, sure, we had a great time, wasn't it? Wonderful, the great meal, the violin music, all the alcohol. Yeah, well, I want to ask you something. You had said something about when we get married. Was that like a proposal? I said, well, kind of. I mean, don't you want to get married? And she said, oh, no, that's fine. I just thought you might be more, traditional about it. And that's far from what I am. You've known me now.
That's a great story. Speaking of cooking, Connie, I know that you've introduced me to some great bakeries and things in Little Italy there in Cleveland. And I'm always like saying, hey, what about this recipe and that sort of recipe? Do you have something that you have a go-to recipe that you're like, I love to cook, or this is the dish that I love to make?
There's a lot of stuff that I like, that I'll make. We just recently there's a restaurant in town called Marotta's that we just went to last Friday and had a great meal there, which was like the first time we actually went out with all this COVID stuff. So it was the first time we actually went anywhere. And the owner started that she had some great recipes, and she was very inspiring to me. And she unfortunately had passed away about 3.5 years ago unexpectedly. But her husband, he still maintains it. So I post a lot of pictures from when we go there, and everybody thinks, is this your restaurant? Because they know I cook. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not. But there's a lot of things I like. I will make a veal scallopini, which is nice, or veal piccata, actually. And more like, that's one of my favorite things to make because it's so easy and quick. I'll make like a vodka blush sauce, which is really good and easy to make, and or like an Alfredo sauce. That's easy and quick, when you're working. Pesto. Sometimes they totally make stuff from scratch, which I haven't had much time to do. And I'll do cheat with certain things. I admit it.
Sure.
I admit it. It's not, and I like to bake, and I've been trying to stay away from baking.
I know baking will take you down a rabbit hole that then you're like, well, maybe if I added this, and then I can make these cookies, and then I can make this cake. It's addicting.
It's very addicting, and I haven't made in a while, like pignoli cookies. There's a really nice recipe that Lydia Bastianich has for pignoli cookies. They're just really expensive to make. The pignolis are very, very pricey. And
Well, I usually make, in fact, we've been making it every couple weeks or so. My family used to make tiela, which is like like roasted potatoes and peppers and onions and a little bit of tomato sauce. Yeah, and you just bake it.
My mom does something similar to that. She used to do a lot of stuff like that. Yeah.
It was those things that they had out of the garden and then straight into the oven. You clean them up and cut it and just put it into the oven.
Like polenta. If we go to a restaurant and I see polenta, I'm like, no, I'm out of here. Because I've done that. There's a funny story about that one time. but it's like I'm not ordering polenta. I can make
polenta is fine for us at home here. It's a very simple Italian comfort food, if you will. Right. One thing that Connie was amazed of was that when we first met, she wanted to know what my appetite was like. My culinary interests. The foods I want to eat. And I basically rattled off all the peasant type of dishes, like the macaroni and the pasta fagioli, the polenta, stuff like that. I didn't mention steaks or anything like that because that's just not how we were raised.
That's right. That's not how we grew up.
Right. So those types of food, will do are.
I do like
for me.
I do comfort food too, and then I'll come up with stuff like the other night I made a meatloaf, and but it wasn't a traditional meatloaf. I threw like roasted red pepper in there. It's just simple ingredients.
I think Italians make meatloaf sort of like it's like a meatball in disguise.
And you use what you have,
Right,
so I'm like, okay, I've got some ground beef, I've got some eggs, I got a little bit of milk, I've got some good olive oil, I have salt and pepper, I have a little bit of grated Romano cheese, and or pecorino, whatever, and then I threw in the roasted peppers, and I'm like, well, why not? Just toss it in.
It was good.
And
it's
gone.
Doesn't last long.
It's gone. As soon as it's out of the oven, it's usually gone. Well, we have started.
There was a little left for the next day, and that was it.
That's about as far as it'll last. We have started another garden. My husband and I have tomatoes and peppers and lettuce and some herbs that we've started to plant again in a bigger space now. So we're excited to see that grow and kind of, start picking and harvesting this summer and fall. Do you guys have something that you always plant every year?
Well, the soil here is not so great in our area right now. You have to do a lot of conditioning and you need a lot of patience. I don't have that. I'm just not.
Mayfield Heights is situated sort of on a clay-based soil.
Yeah.
So you would have to really work it over repeatedly over and over again. And when you do that enough, then you start to exhaust the soil. And I won't lie to you, Anna. Let me tell you and your listeners the truth. I do not have a green thumb.
I have a black thumb.
Okay.
I kill everything.
My late grandmother, who we moved next door to when we first bought the house back in 1990, at the time was in her late 70s, maintained the garden in her yard.
It was huge.
That was the size of, half a football field.
It's a huge, well, not that big,
and,
but she had a double lot, so her garden was really like the size of our backyard.
Right.
And
all sorts of stuff grew in there.
Everything. She had the fig tree, she had the tomatoes, she had the onions.
So she had more than what she ever needed. So we would normally get a phone call from her. Mamme, affacci dalla finestra. Which translates into,
she's so cute.
Honey, go to the window. I've got something for you, Ann.
And I knew, like, okay, I got to go do something. I got to get to the door, go to the yard.
A lot of pleasant surprises from my maternal grandmother.
Yeah, she was so cute. I miss her. And so a lot of family, my mom has a little smaller garden. She lives near the lake. So she lives near Lake Erie, and it's a little different. The soil is slightly better there, and you don't have to condition it as much as here. And so I don't know if it's because of the altitude or just
maybe
just because of the nearness of the water. It's just different there. And so it's like, you want some peso? Take it to peso. I got lots of peso. My garlic is not too good this year. The tomato, they don't want to come yet. You hear those stories like that.
My grandparents, growing up, just about their whole backyard was basically a garden. So as a child, I was able to take a basket and pick all of the tomatoes and peppers and things with my grandfather. So I do remember those days. And then I remember canning those things once we got it all in. Then my aunts were like, right, well, it's time to can now, So I remember doing that as a child, for sure. And now I'm really thankful for a garden.
Those traditions are super important, and I'm so glad that you try to maintain them. My father was fairly good with the garden, but as he kind of got up in the years, he seemed to be less inclined to want to grow his own garden. He only tried making homemade wine one time, and it didn't come out particularly well. Him and his father-in-law, my maternal grandfather, and so it was easier for him just to go to the Italian food store at the top of the street here and buy some Vino Cribari, a four bottle, box, 4 gallons worth. And but you know what? The sausage. I remember my dad for a while making sausage. All those traditions have passed through me as well as through Connie and stuff. It becomes a bit more difficult to maintain just because of the lifestyle, the situation that we're in and stuff.
Sure.
It's a challenge. But whatever we can do, and I will share with you one thing that Connie does do. And let me ask you first, Anna, around Easter time, is there a particular pastry or something that where your family came from makes?
Yes, we make Easter bread. Do you guys make bread?
All right, here's what we make. We make and Connie has learned my mother's recipe, an item, a pastry, I guess you would call it, called fiatone, Fiatone, which kind of means like big breath. And in the dialect, it becomes chatone. And my mother's recipe was the most simplest kind, where you created like
there was a lot of ingredients,
but you created this shell that almost like a calzone. There you go. Almost like how they calzone sandwiches are like. So stuff in this shell would be ricotta cheese mixed with fresh cheese. And my mother usually made it with golden raisins. So Connie obtained a recipe from my mom's younger sister, who knew how to write English better, and
she actually had it written down.
Exactly.
A lot of people don't write the recipes down.
I was going to say, to pry a recipe away from them, good for you, because
they're very proud of it. Okay, but it had like a lot of stuff. So she
improved it.
What I did was I found another recipe similar that had pared down some of these ingredients. And when there's a science to baking, and so when I took a look at this and I experimented, and so I took a little from one and then a little from the other for the shell part, okay, and then I tried, and then I did the filling part mostly with what my mother-in-law did, and I think it came out pretty good, and everybody seems to like it. Like, she used to have Crisco in there, and Crisco is better for pies because it makes it flaky. Well, when we would put the Crisco in, I noticed these things would break, split open, and everything would ooze out. And it's like, it's not supposed to do that. So I kind of tweaked it. And so I made it my own, and
over the years, what she's done is that she has now discovered that we don't have to use golden raisins. We can use raisin, dried cherry, dried blueberries, dried mangoes, and the smorgasbord of different dried fruits in there has become a hit in my family. Everybody wants one of Connie's chardon, but she only makes 6 of them. So
the recipe makes 6, and you end up the filling. It's like you end up using quart of filling per one of these. See, they come out big, so they come out about 12 inches by 6 inches when you fold it. You got the half moon shape, so it's approximately 12 by 6, and inside it's filled with a quart at least of filling. And so I've learned now. So I make one plain without the fruit, and then I'll make one with the golden raisins, blueberries, cherry, craisins, and now mangoes. The one we've been, and that was delicious. I was going to try. I'll just try with one.
She then vacuum packs them, Anna, and you know what? They hold up very well in the freezer, even a year later. You take them out, defrost them.
I got two left.
No freezer burn, and they taste as fresh as the day they came.
Do you serve that like a piece of pie, or how do you serve that? Like, do you cut it?
You cut it, and then you cut it like into small pieces, and I cut them in like in a diamond pattern. That's how my mother-in-law would do it. Okay. And so
stack them on a plate, put the plate on the table, and watch them disappear.
Yeah, it's really good with coffee, like a little espresso, or in the morning you could have like a cappuccino.
Anna, when you come back, we will have a chardonnay.
I was going to say, myself and all of my listeners are now like watering mouths, like we really would like all of this food that we're talking about.
If you go to my Facebook page, you might, if you go back far enough for pictures, I have like pictures where it's like when I'm baking it, like I have the ingredients out, sorted, nice. and then then like a picture of like when they come out, how they look, that kind of thing. So it's a thing that takes like all day to make, yes. Basically.
Sure. Oh yeah, it definitely was an all day kind of day for things like this. I can remember we blocked off a whole day. My aunts would come over to my mom and dad's house, and that's all we did all day was bake Easter bread and things and prepare for the holidays. It was part of like the family experience. It's really one of those traditions that you just, that's what families do, get together.
Yeah, I have to prep for this. It takes like a few days. Like what I do is, you have ricotta cheese, it's very moist. So you have to like drain that. So you put it in like, a colander, or like, you put like, cover it with a little bit of weight so it just starts to drain. And I do that for 2-3 days in advance, depending how moist the stuff is. And then also use like fresh cheese that you can only get like in the springtime. Okay, because that fresh farmer cheese, whatever you want to call it, it's hard to come by, and you usually only get it in the springtime. So you do that too, and it's a little heavier and fatter, and it's all good. It's all good stuff.
Listen, I would live in a house of cheese if I could, because all cheese is good cheese.
Yep.
So if it wasn't for my 6-quart KitchenAid mixer, I don't think I could do this.
Isn't that funny?
I don't know how they ever did this without that. I was
just going to say, technology has made baking and cooking so easy that I'm thinking now, how did my grandmother survive? She had, like, my mom's mother had 9 children, and she made everything by hand and scratch.
Right.
And like, their arms, they had arms. They had a lot of strength in their arms. Man. I don't know how they did it. And I don't have that kind of hand strength like they did, honest to God. But I don't think I'm cheating, but yeah, I mean, so when you use the ricotta, I mean, it takes time. It takes, like I said, it takes all day. You have all this prep work. The prep work is what kills you. The assembly is nothing.
Right.
It's all the prep work. And
it's all the prep work. And that's like dance and music. It's like all the prep work. And then once you get to the show, it's nothing. But the prep work is the real work. Yeah, for sure. Right. I think that's how I actually learned how to braid hair, was because when I was little, I used to braid bread. And then my grandmother said, that's how you can braid your hair. And I thought, oh my gosh, I just learned how to braid. So it's amazing the tips that you learn, just by doing these art forms, music or dance or baking. You're right. It's all of that is creativity, and you learn so much from it. And I think we learn a lot of what I always talk about on the podcast is life lessons. Like you said, that preparation is a lot of hard work. And that's where everything is learned, is in that preparedness.
Yeah,
so
and the reward is so great, though, in the end. It really
absolutely. Is. And once you taste your work, right? Once that work is tasted, you're like, this was worth it.
Or you see your work, or you hear the work.
Absolutely. If you guys had advice to give to the next generation, a life lesson that you guys have learned, what would you tell the next generation to look out for, or a tip or advice?
I would say, well, it's probably easier said than done. Is try not to stress about it.
Yeah,
It's okay. Don't make yourself crazy over it. You just do the best you
for
can,
sure.
and prepare yourself, and go with it.
You know what? With our sons, okay, especially our older boy, Alessandro, we've tried to stress the importance of taking ownership, accountability, responsibility, and active interest in things. And both our boys had issues when they were growing up. Our younger son is nonverbal autistic, so that's going to be a lifelong, sort of a journey for us. But our older son was speech delayed, and so there were challenges in that regard. There, you can buy all the books you want, but each child is unique, so you have to figure out how to apply, whatever it is, certain techniques, to their upbringing that will help advance them. And for me, it was reading to them, playing of music. And I think what that did was that helped give them a little bit of the grounding that they have nowadays. And but it wasn't anything that I was going to force down their throat, something they can't do. If you're fortunate enough, if you're blessed enough where you have kids that pay attention, okay, that take an active interest in dancing, let's say,
Right.
take an active interest in cooking. Alessandro was always in the kitchen around Connie, so he can fend for himself in the kitchen, unlike his father, who would die without somebody that talent.
Can't boil water.
Or you know what? He is now fluent. He's a second generation Italian American, and he speaks and reads the language. But that's all a choice that he made, that he wanted, because
right. And you have to present them their choices, like you said, present choices and give them some options that they can choose from to learn. And I think that's great. Reading, my mom read to me, and I just was enamored with storytelling. And I think that's what captivated me as a dancer. It was a way for me to tell a story in a different way without using words. So I have a lot of students that learn in different ways. Sometimes they'll hear the word, like if I'm teaching a ballet class, they'll hear the French word plie or tendu, and they know what to do. And there's other dancers that I teach that they're like, can you show it to me one more time? They need to see it visually. Mm-hmm. And so that's great too. So as a teacher, I have to adapt. Like you said, everybody learns differently and everybody has that
no wrong way. And there's no wrong way or no right way either.
That's right.
It's your way.
It's whatever works for you. Like, growing up, my mom, her English, and even to this day, is not so great. But she knew that for us, reading was important. And so we were a bunch of bookworms. My mom had us enrolled in 2 different libraries.
Wow.
And every other day we were always at one library or the other. And she learned a lot of English because of us taking us to the library, and we would read to them, and I was a speed reader. I would read like summer reading. Oh my God, I couldn't fill it up enough of those cards that they would give you. I don't know if you ever had anything like that, but the library would give us like a blank, card, and we would write in the name and the author and what did you like about the book, and it depending what age level you were at.
I was going to say mine was colors or levels or something that we went through.
Yeah, and it was really cool. And at the end, if you read X amount number of books, you were rewarded with like a Disney movie. But see, now that's totally different. But back then, 50.
That was a big deal.
It was a huge deal. Right. And, in 2 different libraries, it's like, oh, I've read these books, or this set of books, this week from this place, and this set from that. And it was fun, and it was kind of neat because it helped my mom in a way, because we went to school. I went to kindergarten and I only knew the alphabet in Italian and I could say it in Italian. And, so they look at me because it's like, wait a minute.
Anna, the situation that our parents came from post World War II, it was such that they really were compelled to have to leave the country and immigrate to the U.S. just for a better life. My parents, because of the fascist government, were only allowed to have 3 years of education. So imagine going to 3rd grade and then being told, okay, that's enough for you to be able to, read at a 3rd grade, write at a 3rd grade, and speak at a 3rd grade level, and that's all we want. And my father-in-law was fortunate that he was able to come here much younger and did actually finish high school. But ordinarily for the immigrants, and I'm not sure if this was the same way for your grandparents when they came here, they came here, the old saying was senza legge, senza parlare, senza scrivere. So without the ability to read, write, or speak
Rewrite.
language.
Right.
And you can have the option of press 2 for Italian on the phone back in the days.
For
if you know.
sure. Yeah. My grandparents learned English through watching television. My grandmother loved The Love Boat and like Days of Our Lives and, shows of some kind of soap opera. And she would be wrapped up in it and she would learn words each day. And, so when I went to my grandparents' house, she spoke Italian. And I wasn't fluent. I mean, I was really, really young. I was probably under the age of 10. They lived until the early 80s, and then they both passed away. But so when I would go to their house, she would speak to me in Italian, and I just kind of understood what to do. So that's how I kind of learned Italian. That was like my, way in. We would watch more movies together, musicals together, all kinds of things, and just sing and laugh together. So yeah, that was hard for them, but they did it. They learned English as best they could and communicated with the next generation. So, here we are today talking about that. I thought my whole show's about it.
Sure. They made it work. Connie's paternal grandmother and my maternal grandmother both lived to ripe old ages. I mean, in their late 90s. And between two of them, if they knew a dozen words in English, I would have been surprised. But you know what? They were able to communicate, through their heart and through their actions with their children, their grandchildren, even their great grandchildren. And that's something that I would never trade in. And I just want to say that one thing that I was taught by some of the more seasoned broadcasters back in the day when I first kind of got into radio was that, Tony, just remember this proverb, if you will. Okay, people are probably not going to remember anything that you said or anything that you did, but they will remember how you made them feel.
Absolutely.
And you know what? When you dance, it's kind of the same thing. They may not remember what it was that you danced, but they'll remember how wonderful it was. And
the feeling from the show. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The feeling from the show. And we try to have themes every year, to have some kind of one thread that goes from the top of the show to the bottom of the show. And we leave the audience with some kind of nugget of education or emotion or something that they've learned from the Italian culture, whether it's, an authentic dance that we've learned from Italy, or just something about the culture and what we do as people and how we relate to others, or what things are important to us as a culture, family, faith.
What you're saying now is that you and I both were tasked with maintaining our culture. Okay, you through the art of dance and me through the music and stuff, so that it doesn't disappear. Okay,
right.
I wanted my older son to learn the Italian language so that nobody could say that it ended with my family. Okay, did that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
right.
I was made, I made sure, and Connie made sure through the cooking and the baking that she does, that Alessandro was exposed to as much as of his Italianita as possible. And then, we left it up to him whether he wanted to continue it, and he has chosen to do that. And we're extremely proud of actually.
Yeah, this year makes 100 years ago that my grandparents got married and came to.
I saw that. Oh, that was so cute.
Yeah, so I can't imagine, coming to this country. Well, one set of grandparents had an arranged marriage, and the other set of grandparents had an arranged marriage, but my grandmother didn't like the person that she was supposed to marry. So her best friend said, well, I'll marry you. We know each other. We're friends, and we're from the same town, and I'll marry you, and we'll make it work. Well, they made 9 children, so I think they made it work.
That worked.
They made it work. It's so cute.
I think that I always like to say that's where my journey began. you know, so if she didn't make those choices, if they didn't make those choices to leave their country to be with each other, we wouldn't be here today. We just wouldn't be here.
Bingo. Well,
right, and have these opportunities to share our culture and art forms and language and all of that, food, the whole bit. Here we are, right? All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we'll come back and chat some more about culture and music and dance, and maybe Connie can spill one more recipe for me. Looking for ways to get fit or learn a unique dance style? Go to allegradancecompany.net and sign up for a private lesson today, where you can take your dance and fitness to the next level. Remember, we also offer virtual classes that are available. Go to allegradancecompany.net for more information. And now back to our show. So Tony, you were telling us a little bit about passing on those traditions to your children and to the next generation. What would you say for advice, like we were talking about giving tips or advice to that next generation, maybe through music? You have that musician maybe listening right now, and how can he or she break into that music industry?
It's the art, especially now, because they've been like one of the hardest hit industries because of this COVID situation. But even prior to that, music is it's so challenging, okay? Because first of all, it's so personal a thing. Anybody that goes into music expecting fame and riches, I can assure you that 99.9% of them will never ever find it, okay? They might find a certain level of satisfaction and achievement, you know, that may be all that they're really looking for. So, you know, it's good to dream big, but you have to be realistic about it. And there needs to be talent there. I remember you came to Cleveland and you tried to teach me with two left feet how to dance, and I'm not sure how you didn't. I'm not sure how you didn't manage to, you know, because I had to have been the worst student ever that you had.
Listen, Connie guided you. You were fine.
Oh God, yeah, enough of that to kill us.
You said left, I went right, but the intention was there. So certainly when it comes to music, you have to be open to. You have to be open to try and broaden your perspective.
Tell dancers, like, find out what your intention is. You know, what is your intention with your art, and have some goals. And then what is your strategy to get to meet those goals? And right now with the pandemic, it's really challenging for all of us artists to get our art out there. So we have to be even more creative. Like you said, you know, just go with it. And some things come along the way that you just have to go with it.
So many of my music friends are from Italy and are baby boomers like me or younger. And most of my friends that are attached to me and my Facebook page are those people that are in the music business, musicians, whatever, you know. And remember, the pandemic started earlier in Italy. It started at the beginning of the year, if not even sooner than that. So, you know, I was already seeing some of the hardships that it was causing, and it really made these people kind of stop and reflect and reevaluate. Okay, what are we going to do? And one of the things that came out was the singing on the balconies.
I was just going to say that was actually beautiful. I watched that. And so many people came out and just sang, no matter what it was. It was just a way for people to gather and be together and know that you're not alone. You know, I think that's what music and dance, all of these art forms tell us as a society, is that you're not alone and we need each other. And
then the proliferation of Zoom. I'd never heard of Zoom before 2020. And all of a sudden bands were taking and were performing as a band, because they had through Zoom, because they had the proper audio equipment, professional equipment, that one could play the piano, one could play the guitar, one could sing, one could play the drums, and so they found another way. resilience is probably going to be the most important characteristic, the most important requirement. A kind of stick to itness that you just cannot get depressed or disconsolate. You have to continually look on the bright side of things. As I tell people, when you wake up, it's already a good start, isn't it?
That's right. You woke up on the right side. And I always say we have that the show must go on mentality. We as dancers have been using Zoom to record our work. Yeah. I had a few dancers the other day. There was a hotel here in Pennsylvania that allowed just a couple dancers. We wore masks and they cleaned the room and the whole bit, just so that we could record and videotape one of the dances, because we're going to be giving a virtual concert. Since we can't go to festivals this summer, we're going to be doing a virtual concert on my Facebook page and on the website. So I have one other dancer and myself that's going to be doing a duet that we're going to be doing at the end of August. And then Labor Day weekend, we, instead of going to Clarksburg, West Virginia, my hometown, they've decided to do their festival virtually, which is really different and exciting. I'm glad they're going to be doing something because, as you know, many festivals were canceled or postponed or whatever until next year. So they will be doing sort of like a television show where they can have artists go on, and we're sending in recordings and things like that. So they're going to be broadcasting a show basically on Italian culture. And then some of the restaurants are doing takeout and, curbside service. So we're still going to have a festival in a way, but it's just going to be at a distance.
A little different. That's okay.
But I heard you say, Anna, I heard you say resilience.
That's right.
No matter what. Always, what it reduces to, it's always, the resilience, the intent. And if you have that focus, if you have that goal, then you have something that you can shoot and try to attain.
Absolutely.
But the flexibility has to be there too, though, where you can, make changes and adapt. Adaptability, I suppose, is also.
Oh my gosh, flexibility, adaptability. Listen, I can't tell you how many times I've walked in to perform or to teach a lesson and all the lesson plans go out the window because, something didn't work out. Especially when I'm doing musicals, if I'm choreographing for a musical and something doesn't work because of a costume or because of the staging, or there's a prop that didn't work out that we thought was going to work, you have to just go with it and be able to be flexible to change it on the spot. So the other thing I've learned is improvisation. I don't know about you, but every day is sort of an improvisation right now, right?
Yep, it is.
You can't plan. You can't plan anything. And so every day is like, well, what are we going to do today? What should we eat? What do we have left?
It's different every day.
It is different every day. But I think that's something about being creative. I think we rise to that challenge and we love finding, answers to new problems, if that makes sense.
We accept the challenges.
We accept the challenges. We're like, bring it on. We can take it all. And we as choreographers love that problem solving, because if something doesn't work in a dance, I'm always thinking, well, let me walk around to the back of the stage. Maybe I need to look at it from a different perspective. And so I think that's another life lesson I always tell dancers, maybe you just need to look at it in a different way. Changing your perspective changes your mind sometimes.
Connie brought a cookbook out. We're in trouble.
We're in trouble now.
Simple, great summertime salad. Okay, it's called Insalata di Finocchio con Arancio. Okay, so it's fennel and orange salad.
Okay.
So the ingredients are 2 large fennel bulbs, about 1.5 pounds, 2 sweet oranges, 2 scallions for garnish, and then the dressing would be 4 tablespoons extra virgin olive oil. Don't skip on olive oil.
No, never.
2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice and some salt and freshly ground black pepper.
Simple.
Okay.
Very simple. That's not a lot of ingredients, okay? It's not a lot. So what you do is you wash the fennel, the bulbs, and remove any of like the brown or stringy outer, leaves and stuff.
Edges and leaves, yep.
Yeah. So you clean up nice, and then you slice the bulbs and stems into thin pieces. I suggest if you have a mandolin, you can adjust the thickness to. Those are great, but don't cut your fingers off.
Right. We won't be able to play the accordion later.
Right. So then you put this in a shallow bowl. So then you take the oranges and with the really sharp knife, cut away the white pith and you slice it thin. So each slice take each slice into thirds. So you're going to cut it kind of fancy, but not, you don't make it.
Depends on the family that's coming over, right?
Yeah.
Fancy.
So you arrange the fennel and you arrange it over the fennel and you just add any of the juice from the oranges in there. And then what you do is then you make your dressing. So you mix the oil and the lemon juice together, and then you season it with salt and pepper. And then you pour the dressing over the salad, and you mix it really well. You slice the white and the green sections of the scallions really thin, and you sprinkle it over the salad. And then you're good to go.
You have an explosion of flavors in your mouth.
It's very different.
That orange, that's really different.
So the recipe it's originally from Sicily. Okay.
Wow.
You have a lot of
that makes sense with the oranges. That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, and fennel you can get fennel anywhere pretty much. If you go especially if you can go to like a nice, if you shop local, sometimes you can find something local and get some nice, it's different flavor, and you can even save the other part of the dill for maybe like some salmon or something, some seafood.
That sounds good.
And yeah, but it's a nice light salad, and I made this years ago one time for something at work, and since I work at a hospital, the doctors went crazy for this thing, and I'm like, it's just fennel and orange.
Right. You don't have that palate, and you're not used to that. You've introduced them to something new. We used to make a green, white, and red salad. It was green peppers, onions, and tomatoes with just a little olive oil, like in seasoning. My salad as a child was like a piece of bread. Done.
Oh, yeah. And with the juices, did you dunk like the fresh bread in there?
Scarpetta for your Italian.
So good.
You're
fresh,
not Italian.
Into with the tomatoes, the juices of the tomatoes and the salt and the pepper and the oil.
Exactly.
And, we didn't put vinegar in ours. We just used oil.
Okay.
We did that. And oh my God, it's just like
Anna,
it was so good.
A bowl, no matter what it contained in it, whether it was pasta, whether it was salad, whether it was, you name it, ice cream. You know what? A piece of bread would always do the finishing touch. I mean, you could put it from there and right onto the shelf, without having to worry about it.
Bread was life,
But you could try that this summer. It's a nice, light, refreshing summer salad type of thing. It's just something different.
She'll send you the recipe.
Please and thank you. I can post it. I love the orange touch because when we went to Capri, we had lemon pasta, and as soon as we came home, it was like, that's it. We have to have lemon everything. You get on these kicks, different palettes, and I tell you what, it was amazing. It was delicious. It was different, and we had all kinds of lemon dishes. So that was
that area of Italy, Campania, where you have Sorrento, Napoli, Capri, Ischia, Amalfitano, Positano. That's where the limoncello, the best in the world, comes from.
I mean, now that we've made all of our listeners exhausted and hungry. Well, I'm going to end our broadcast for today, but it was a joy and a pleasure to talk to two of you. It's always fun when we get together, and I missed you both very, very much. And I can't wait until all of this is better and the world heals so we can get together and have a real dinner and chat some more and visit with one another. I loved visiting Cleveland and Little Italy there and shopping with you guys and eating with you guys. So that is something I'm looking forward to on the other side of this rainbow. It's what's going to get us through. And in the meantime, look forward to the festivals again and just, performing live and hearing laughter and applause rather than just silence on the other side of Zoom. It's just weird. Right. It's just weird right now.
I know. But I have a feeling it's going to get worse before it gets better. But once it gets better, I think we'll be all the better for it.
Absolutely.
The proverbial that which does not kill you, Anna, only
Makes
makes
you
you
stronger, right? Hey, if anything, I've gained a lot of skills that I'm posting on my resume and LinkedIn page.
Right.
You know, we're learning skills each day and just trying to be better people each and every day and learning about things that being a better person in society and trying to step up and, like you said, just share our culture and all the wonderful things that come with the Italian culture, the language, the food, the history, the architecture, the music and dance. I can't wait. Both my husband and I will be cooking again all weekend. That's what we do on weekends is we love to cook together and make some different recipes for the week and try new things with what we have. And I'll post some pictures of our garden. It's starting to
Please.
It's exciting. Yeah, that sounds fun.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the dance floor. I'm your host, Anna Harsh. Until next time, keep on dancing and moving on the dance floor.